Welcome. This is the EWB USA Mentors Forum, Making It Meaningful, Part 1. I'm Brad Hughes. With me are a bunch of other very talented mentors from around Wisconsin and the country. We're here today to talk about mentoring and have a bit of an open discussion, hopefully cover some important topics to those of you out there that are doing mentoring. Presenting with me is Alberto Cordero.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining and viewing in these times. I am an electrical engineer for Affiliated Engineers, and I mentor the EWB University of Wisconsin chapters for Puerto Rico and Ecuador projects.
I'm Tom Jenkins. I am an independent consultant working primarily in wastewater, and I mentor the UW, University of Wisconsin-Madison Engineers Without Borders student chapter.
Hi, I'm Amanda Pustis. I'm also an electrical engineer, and I work for Affiliated Engineers. I am one of the mentors for the EWB University of Wisconsin Puerto Rico chapters.
Hi, I'm Kevin Frost. I'm a mechanical engineer working in energy efficiency, and I'm a mentor for the Engineers Without Borders UW Guatemala program.
Hi, I'm Dan Royal. I'm with EWB Detroit. I'm a water and wastewater engineer, and I mentor the University of Toledo chapter.
And I'm Brad Hughes. I'm a structural engineer working in Wisconsin, and I was a mentor also for the EW-Madison EWB chapter. Today in this forum, we're gonna it's going to be potentially pretty broad, ranging, covering a lot of topics, but we're going to have a little introduction of mentoring as we see it, and then we're going to move on to a bunch of different topics and hopefully have some lively discussion. So to give a little introduction to history of why this session even came to be, the chapter here in Madison, Wisconsin has been around since 2008. And when I joined the professional chapter shortly after, it became clear that the students were having a hard time working with the mentors that they had at that time, just logistics and personalities and that sort of thing. And MAPC was struggling to provide support to the students. Over the next 5+ years, the chapter sort of developed a way to work with students and provide some consistent support for them, including workshops and also supporting the professionals themselves and the chapter as a whole. What makes EWB mentoring unique, and why is it worth having a discussion here online? It's a group of volunteers, and that makes it a bit of a unique scenario. These projects are real projects, but they're led by students. It's a very it's important international development work, and it's the students that are leading these projects, and they need some support to do that. The funds being donated makes it another interesting wrinkle in this. So what does it take to be a mentor within EWB? Definitely takes an interest in getting involved with the students and kind of feeding off their energy and enthusiasm, which is really one of the fun parts for me. If you want to play a part in development around the world and work with a bunch of other talented young people and talented not so young people, it's a great opportunity to get involved. But it does take some patience, and you have to be patient and work with the students and wait for those opportunities to come along. So some observations that our chapter has made over the years is that maybe it's an obvious observation that mentors are critical to the support of these projects. The students need our support to make their projects a success. So, but new mentors coming in or mentors that join the chapters have a hard time, it seems, finding resources to help them do what they need to do. And particularly new mentors, they need support. And that's something that we've learned over the years. So now we're going to move into the discussion, and there are lots of potential topics that we could talk about here today, and we'll see where the discussion goes. But we're going to start by covering several topics that we have deemed important and have put some a little more thought into, and Alberto is going to step through some of those initially here.
Okay, Brad.
So the mentor roles and responsibilities is one of them, and Alberto is going to cover this being the mentor perspective as well as the student perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. So I think this is more of what you're looking at now is more of what you expect from the mentor side. The technical guidance, the connecting with professional resources, helping find other mentors and doing workshops. So what I wanted to do was talk to the students, our mentees, and see what they're looking for us based on their experiences. I've been lucky to work with many groups for up to 4 years now, and I heard number one that they find the mentors very critical part of the process, that they rely on us, and that I always hear the common theme that they cannot do it without us. So I did a visual presentation with a couple of students, different groups, and this is what I heard from them. They're looking for people, mentors that have relevant experience and knowledge. Very important, if you're working on a bridge project, they really want you to know a little bit about bridges, for example. Approachable and friendly. They want to be able to, they're students, they're young. They want to be able to come to you and ask you a question. So that's I heard that as being very, very important. The reality check was huge. They want us to be clear, and at any point let them know that the project is moving in the right direction or not. That reality check. We had the experience, and they're looking for that feedback, but in a non-condescending way. I heard that too. So the students really want that reality check from us. And Brad, I'm gonna cue you into the next one, the critical path analysis, guiding the schedule and organization. We've been doing this schedule plans or live card tricks where we talk about what is the problem and how are we gonna solve it, and putting it up in a board. So I'm gonna let Brad talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I guess what I would say about that is it's basically kind of an interactive work plan session that we have found successful working with the students because it's very graphical. It allows you to put the kind of the tasks and the work breakdown structure up on the wall, and you can move it around and have the students really get engaged in that. And I think they really like that kind of interactive process of developing the work plan, but then also being able to see it.
Yeah, because they say they haven't done a real project sometimes, especially something that's related to construction, and they really want that guidance about what are the steps that we have to do so we can succeed. Being energizing and encouraging was something that the students asked for. They don't have experience, but they have a lot of energy, and they have the time. They're giving us their time. So, we don't want to be giving them bad news every time, right? That something is not going to work, or being a little critical. They really not want that coaching spirit in us to give them the boost to stay excited about the project. Availability and consistency is very important. Why? Because the students roll over, right? The students are in school for 4 years, and sometimes they join, either leave the team or the project, and the glue becomes the mentor in sometimes. So turnover is detrimental, and we also develop our own relationships with the country, and that consistency is really important and appreciated. And of course, I always ask what we're doing wrong or what they do not want. They don't want micromanaging. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. So that balance between guiding and micromanaging can be tricky. And ignoring email or correspondence, right? We need to be very mindful that these are students, that they have their own timeline on their classes, right? They're taking their own classes, they have exams. And when they reach out to us, it's because they really need help. So we have to be very reactive. And this topic is open now for anybody who wants to add.
One observation I have about the availability or the consistency, I guess, is the bigger issue with the long term. And the longer you're involved with EWB, the more you appreciate how the mentors are the glue, like you said, from year to year. Sometimes the handoff of projects is a difficult thing for students to do, and sometimes the mentors are the ones that kind of tie that together.
Yeah, kind of getting into that topic a little bit, what are some good ways to, at the beginning of the year when you have that transition, what's a good way to kind of reestablish that communication as you have a new group of students coming in and, the cast of the project is kind of turning over?
That's a great question, Dan, and a very difficult one. So the PMs or the good thing is that the students do a transition period. They understand. So they get a PM on the project, and then a new one comes in. And technology has helped with this, creating the share folders online. So they have a history of the project there to reflect and look back on.
Okay. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, so I guess a couple thoughts. One, hopefully the students we encourage UW to try to pick new PMs early, and they kind of came up with that on their own, I think, because it helped with their transition from year to year. And by early, I mean maybe they'll bring their new PMs on board in the spring so that in the fall they can be the new PMs. The other thing I would say is if you can get in contact with them, if you can just meet them and have a cup of coffee, introduce yourself, get to know them a little more personally, that goes a long way with developing a relationship with the students. There's more trust then, and I would highly recommend it. Just try to get to know those PMs better early on.
Amanda.
Yeah, I guess to add on to what Kevin was saying, I found it when I first started like 2 years ago, I found it very beneficial to, go to as many meetings as you can. Try to be, even if it doesn't be every week, but even if it's okay, every other week, I'm going to make this meeting. I'm going to see these people in person, or I guess now I'm going to see them, via Zoom or Teams or whatever they're using. But just make sure that they kind of recognize me and I also get to recognize them and, kind of form that relationship early on, just so that they know that you're there and, they can rely on you, or if they even have any questions, they see your face at the meeting and they're like, oh, well, I can go to this person and ask them a question and, they can at least help me, or maybe they know the answer to the question. So I think attending the meetings consistently, if you can, is very beneficial.
And it takes my experience going back to that, some of the earlier slides we talked about. It takes a while for you to get understanding what you need to do, and it takes a while for the students to understand how to give you information, and that only happens, it seems, over a series of meetings. So I think all of those things really make a lot of sense. Are we ready to move on to next topic?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take this one again because this was part of the student survey we did. The Memorandum of Understanding is a document between the mentor and the mentees, between the mentors and the student chapter that they're mentoring. And I don't know, a show of hands here, I don't know, everybody can say, everybody can see, who has done a memo of understanding before? And I'm going to raise my hand, actually. So we have 3. Oh, to everybody. Amanda too, all right. Well, I haven't done it. Oh, she just has her hand up. So the consensus between the students, when I brought it up to them, they said, they think it's a very useful tool. Having a document that sets expectations and provide that guidance for the mentor involvement, like right at the beginning, as Dan was saying. It's like trying to understand, what am I getting myself into on both sides of the equation between the mentor and the mentee.
Yeah, there's a point of reference, if I can interrupt, Alberto.
Yeah.
I mean, we just tried to, in the document that we used, we really tried to be as specific as we thought was necessary at the beginning of the project to spell out who is involved from the mentor side, what the mentors were going to provide. And this was a team of mentors, so there's like 6 or 8 of us. And then also, we made some requests of the students on how they communicate and what they're going to do and what they're not going to do.
One of the things that I think is important is that the MOU can be changed. It's not carved in stone. And we all know that as the designs progress, the project changes. And it's important to keep updating that MOU to keep track, or to keep up rather, with the changes in the project.
Yeah, good point, Tom.
Yeah, and there is an example out there on, if you search a bit on Volunteer Village, you can find an example document as a starting point.
Yeah, and the ones that I've seen that I saw for as examples provide that timeline too of the project. It includes the weekly meetings, the time of the meetings, and the expectations about how many meetings they want you to attend. How many hours per week, so the mentor can really provide their commitment and decide, right? This is it is a big commitment for both sides being volunteers. And something else that I thought of when we were talking with the students was, we can also add time. What other things do you want for each specific mentor? If a mentor has a particular expertise, for example, that mentor can do a brown bag presentation or a workshop and include that as part of their responsibilities. So what you're getting into. Or sometimes if you have a downtime, because all of us have experienced a little downtime. You go into a meeting and it's like, what am I supposed to be doing today? And then you have something to fall back on.
Anybody else have any other thoughts on MOUs? All right, let's go on to
communication.
A rather significant topic of communication.
Oh yeah, those mentor emails are key. So we've been, I think everybody agrees, right? We talk to our students, we give them some feedback, and they actually agree that having that mentor communication, that email once a week, telling us what's happening during the week, telling us what we need to prepare, and we can, because it really respects our time, we can communicate with each other. As an example, I work with Amanda, and sometimes I know what's happening that week, and we can cover for each other. It's like, you know what, I cannot make it this week. Are you going to be able to make it? Because they're going to talk about electricity, for example, that night.
And I think you're talking about an email from the students to the mentors,
Yep.
letting them know
Correct.
what's going on that week or what's coming up. Correct.
And more communication is best. Don't be left out. And this goes both ways. We've had, some of the main issues or conflicts that we've had is about not knowing what's going on, either some in-country communication or some communication with some other groups or with themselves, and not understanding. So always have a list. In my opinion, everybody should be copied in all emails, but at least your responsible engineer in charge should be copied in all correspondence, because even if it's not a topic that you know of, you might hear something that may trigger a conversation, because again, we want to be able to provide guidance, and to do that, we need to understand what's going on, keeping the mentors in the loop. What else? For communication, yeah, the students, some of this feedback I'm giving you is from the student survey. Personal connections, text is okay. A personal text, the students have, a lot of my students have my phone number. They can just text me because either something's coming up or they really need us to show up at a meeting for a particular reason. A personal text is okay. WhatsApp, for example, is fine.
Dan, you had something.
Yeah, I wanted to, talk about with Alberto. You made a great point about, making sure that the mentors and especially the REIC is copied on communications or is always in the loop, and that's something that I've really stressed. And the students I've worked with have picked up on that. And but also one of the key things to do with that is that it is to make sure you reciprocate on that. So if our NGO, the person that we work with in country, she likes to call me on WhatsApp from time to time, just to check on how things are going or give an update or whatever. And if she'll call me or she'll call different people on the project team. We keep pretty close communication with her. And anytime she talks to me directly, afterward, I make sure I type up a summary email. Say I just talked to Jessica. She said X, Y, and Z. We should follow up with A, B, and C. And kind of leading by example of what that type of communication is supposed to look like, so that they see I'm keeping the students in the loop, and they understand that it goes both ways, that they then have the responsibility to keep me in the loop.
That is really good about leading by example, and then they know to follow up with that. Amanda, you had something to share? Well, you're muted.
Yep. I just wanted to say that, when you mentioned too with like the personal connections, I know like even recently, I got a text from one or two of the students asking me for, oh, we are trying to do this and we're not sure how, we did this before. Do you have a few minutes before the meeting to walk us through this? Or, it can be something as, kind of almost simple as that. Where, if it was in an email, I mean, I try to check my emails and stay on top of it, but, for some of those last minute or maybe even urgent things, if you're comfortable with, giving your number to the students to text you or the project managers, it's really helpful, because then at least that way you also know, oh, I'm needed for this. Like I can help you out with this. So I find that really useful.
Just real quick to add on to all of this, all of these communication items, is these are really good things to put in your MOU with the students at the beginning of the project to make sure it's clear, who's copied on what emails, and can you text the mentor? Is the mentor okay with that arrangement? Those are things that can be put into that memorandum of understanding, so everyone's aware of that communication.
I had something that was very kind of tying it all together too, back to the earlier ones. We, in our MOU, we put in there that emails that come to the mentors should have in the subject line EWB Uganda, because if you're like me, I mean, there's so many emails coming in. It's the only way to be able to find information is if you can search, and if you have all these emails with subject lines that are just sort of random, which I've seen many times, it's much more difficult.
Yep, something so simple but so important.
Yeah.
And then what also helps with the communication, the students mentioned, is that they want to build relationships with us so they can feel easier talking to us. And they really encourage us to attend their social events. that helps with the communication. They know you, and they feel more comfortable with you, and that's gonna again improve the communication. It's gonna really help the project that way. Some other things that I wrote up here was the subgroup mentor alignment. Yes, that was also maybe in the MOU or just in the communication emails. Sometimes the projects have the subgroups, and you can assign a mentor to a subgroup, and then that also helps with the communication because it just people know where they reside and what they could be working on. So, any final thoughts here? Any challenges that you've had on the communication side? Before we end part one, Brad?
I tell when I talk to student project managers, I tell them that every bad project that I've had out in the professional world where a project has gone wrong, it's a communication problem. Ultimately, if you trace it back, so I think that's just something that's kind of the nature of the business, and but it's so important. It can be relatively easy to address, but it's very difficult to stress that enough, I guess.
One thing I've noticed too is it takes a while for the students to get into the groove of documenting the communications and the resolutions for meetings and agendas for the next meeting. And that's incredibly helpful. But the mentor's got to be a little bit of a bad guy and try to enforce that discipline on them until they get used to it and get into the habit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, since something we kind of have gotten in, as you're working as a professional, you kind of get used to just doing that, and it's not something that they're necessarily used to doing yet. All right, let's try to squeeze in one more here in part one. If we talk about mentoring the mentors, Amanda, do you want to start out our mentoring the mentors discussion?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting topic, especially, y'all, I think we can all remember starting off as a mentor, and maybe not really knowing what's going on or how to really get involved and how to be, useful, I guess. And, so now that we've been mentors, there's always new people trying to, coming into projects. And so I'm sure there's, a bunch of challenges and different ways that we try to help other mentors out. One of the questions I had was, how do you resolve conflicts between mentors? Sometimes there's projects with, a larger group of mentors, and how do you, whether it's divide responsibilities or if there's, things that come up, how do you resolve that?
I think, the way that I've operated on our project is, we typically have a lead mentor. That lead mentor is also typically the most experienced of the mentor team. And it ultimately comes down to that person, and typically also is also the REIC. And if it's a technical thing, that person sort of makes the call one way or the other. If it's a personal conflict or a communication issue, it's their responsibility to kind of step in and set the ground rules and clear the air and kind of circle back to what the mode of operation of the group is and how the team is supposed to work. That it's kind of, you ultimately need to have sort of the one person, the lead, who has to step in. And in my experience, that's how we typically operate.
And I think typically that's the resident engineer in charge for the project.
Yeah, and I would add to that also that it's also that person's responsibility to understand who where the expertise is on any given issue. So if it's a technical issue involving a structure, my other mentor, Zach, on the project is our structural engineer, and he gets the final say, and I'm going to back whatever he says. If it's related to communications with the community, whoever the current project lead is, who's been most in touch with the NGO and understands the broader context, I'm going to defer to them. So it's ultimately that person's responsibility to recognize who is in the best position to understand the situation and to back that person up.
One thing I've seen with when you're talking about the mentor team and the REIC and the lead mentor, one thing I've seen that has been successful on projects is to have those not be the same person. The lead mentor not necessarily being the REIC, where that lead mentor is really kind of like kind of knows what's going on and is coordinating the project, but is not necessarily the technical lead on the project. It's not unlike in the out in our professional work where there's a project manager that may not be the technical expert on the particular project.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Especially on a lot of these projects, there's just a lot of hats to do, and it's voluntary for all of us. We all have our regular engineering jobs. Being able to help split up that kind of organization helps a lot. Of course, yeah, whenever you have multiple engineers, every engineer would engineer each of these projects differently than the next, and so I think it just, in addition to everything that Dan said, which was really great, is also know when to make sure that if you're gonna fight it out, if you're gonna and have an argument, just keep it away from the students. I would just make that sense.
Great advice.
Yeah, I was actually gonna add that too, that you can have some conversations, and the mentors also should be getting to know each other too, and having those side conversations, or we're all professionals also. So in my experience, it's been wonderful. All mentors are really, if we're here, we have a goal, a common goal, and if you're butting it out technically, that's fine. It's part of the fun.
I would add to that and say it might be a good, whenever the decision is made, make sure you explain to the students like how you came to that decision. It's also, to me, it would be a good example too for young student leaders to see, how we resolve these conflicts and how we come to decisions.